This beautiful painting by Vincent Van Gogh will inspire us for our art today. Take a look at his beautiful swirling wind and starry sky. Check out his cypress tree in the foreground of his artwork, and the town in the middle ground, and the hills in the background. I'm inspired by Vincent Van Gogh's Starry Night in this drawing. I'm going to draw first, and then we're going to be using a printmaking technique to create movement in our drawing. So I'm going to start with a pencil actually, and divide my picture plane into spaces: foreground, middle ground, and background. The foreground of your artwork is the area that's closest up to you. The middle ground is towards the middle in distance, and then the background is the area that's furthest away from you that appears that way. It's an optical illusion. You get to create your own optical illusion, a trick, so that people that look at your art can see what you want them to see. So I'm going to make a light line with a pencil for the foreground, and then another line for the middle ground, and then I'm going to suggest another line for the background, and then this will be my sky area. So I'm going to move on from my pencil to a permanent marker, and I'd like to show you a simple tree that we could draw in the foreground. So with my tree, I'm going to make it appear like it's really close up to you. So size is going to be as big as the paper. It's going to be stretch the length of the paper in height. So I want to create the trunk of my tree and then the top of my tree towards the top of my page. And I can even have it go off the top of the page if I'd like to. But in Vincent Van Gogh's piece, it's a cypress tree, and it looks like a flaming tree. So with my tree, I'm going to draw it like this. I'm going to have the trunk growing up, and then I'm going to show the other side of my trunk. And for the top of my tree, I'm going to use a line that's kind of swooping around and curves. I'm going to swoop it around, and notice it goes off the top of my page. That makes it look really close up to us. You could add some branches coming off. You could even suggest some little leaves showing through in your tree. Okay, so also in the foreground, I'm going to have some other details. I'd like to have some bushes. Remember that technique of using some wiggly lines to show texture of fluffy? Maybe there's another bush right here, and then another bush touching the tree. You could even use zigzag lines to show, it's kind of a nervous line showing the texture of grass, a little grassy area. I'm trying to stay in the foreground area. Just wiggling those lines. You could even create some flowers. Look, here's a tulip. Use the letter U with a zigzag across, and I'll have another tulip here. I love these. And then another U for another tulip there, and I am liking that. I think I'll have another tulip kind of growing behind this tree. I'm going to have a U, zigzag. There's another tulip, and one more right here. I feel like it needs to live right there. Okay, now towards the middle ground of my piece, I'm going to have my shapes start to appear to get smaller to show that distance and that depth in my drawing. And since I've got something drawn for detail here, I'm going to scoot over on this side of my page for the next detail. In this space, I'm going to draw a building, and this is going to be my house. You could draw a church, you could draw an apartment building. It's really up to you what kind of building you draw, but we'll use simple shapes for this house. So I'm going to use a rectangle. It's going to have two short sides and two longer sides that are parallel, and it's okay if they're not exactly straight, because we are creating movement in this drawing anyway. So for your rooftop, you might use a triangle for your roof, or a trapezoid. What would you like to use for your roof? I'm going to create mine like this. This is going to be the top of my roof, and then I'm going to have a diagonal matching diagonal the best I can, and then connect to my house. You could have a chimney with another rectangle. And now let's take a look. I need a way to get into my house, so I could have a doorway. Look, I used a curve for my doorway. You can do that. And I'm gonna have a special window right above my doorway just to create a little more detail. It's gonna be a circular window. I'm gonna go around my doorway here just to create more detail. There's a little window in my door. Then I'd like to add, I'm gonna have some rectangle windows on either side of my house. Some window panes by crossing those lines. And you could add a little detail on top of your windows and below. Am I using more rectangles? Yes, they're just smaller. Okay, now I would like the texture of bricks on my chimney. And I'd like to use lines to show movement. I've got a fire in my fireplace so that the smoke is coming out. I can swirl some lines. It's coming out of my chimney. Okay, now I can have some more bushes growing beside my house. And I could even have a little walkway that's coming from the door to the foreground, right in here. Okay, so heading on, I can stop here, looking around. I'm gonna move on to the background. I'm gonna show you another tree, smaller, that's growing from the background. And we're going to draw it up in this space to give the illusion that it's further off. So I'm gonna have my same parallel lines. And now I'm going to start here because I'm gonna have, whoops, stop, hop. My tree is going behind these pieces. This tree is behind the big tree, the foreground tree, and it's going behind the house a little bit. I could even show another tree, maybe growing here. It's kind of leaning, I like that. And then maybe another tree trunk, part of the top of the tree. And I could even suggest a little ground, some wiggly grass going into the background. Okay, I like this, so I think I'm ready to add color. But first I'm going to erase my pencil lines from my division. And this is going to be, my drawing is going to be at night, inspired by Vincent Van Gogh's Starry Night. Oh, before I do that, before I stop, let's draw some stars in the sky. I could suggest some stars by just making a letter X and a line through it. That might be my stars. Or maybe I'm going to have just dots or circles to suggest stars. It's really up to you how you want to draw your stars in your starry night. There might be a little sky all around in this area. Let's use an eraser to erase the pencil lines from the beginning of our drawing. We drew them light so they easily erase. Drawing lightly is called sketching. Sketching is a way to plan out your art. It's a great way to plan because you can change your plan easily. One more to erase here. Okay, I think we're ready to start adding color. I'm going to use crayons to add my color. You could use oil pastels if you have oil pastels at home, and I just used, this is regular just drawing or copy paper, so it will hold up nicely with either one. We are going to be using paper marbling to add that movement to the sky as if it's a windy night in just a little bit. But first we want to add our color to some specific items. I would like to go ahead, I'm going to have my house some color. I'm going to use some brown and just color in some spaces. to get the detail of color. Because once we print, it's hard to add color once we print our marbleized color. And that is my favorite part. I can't wait to do that with you guys. And I think I'd like to add some brown to my tree trunks. Remember, you can press down harder for a darker value, and then light pressure can show a lighter value. I'm gonna have these in the distance get lighter because actually they would be harder to see because they're moving off in the distance. And I think I'll have a little brown in my brick. I'm gonna mix some reddish color into my brick. And then I'd like some yellow for my tulips. And let's see what else I have in here. I would like some kind of a grayish roof. So I'm not gonna press down really hard with my black. Just a very light application so that it looks gray. And I think I'm gonna get creative and I'm gonna have a blue front door. And you guys go ahead and finish up your crayon. Leave some space white for our printing and you'll see how that's going to work out in just a few minutes. Paper marbling, guys. This is going to be so much fun, and the materials are very easy to obtain. I'm going to be using a piece of aluminum foil for my background for my shaving cream that you'll need. You'll need shaving cream, and you'll need some food coloring, and paper to print on. This is just copy paper or drawing paper will work. You could actually print on any white paper. It should work, and you can even just try it out. But you're going to want to print several pieces of paper and use them for different projects because it's so much fun. So let's get started. I'm going to lay this off to the side because my aluminum foil is fine. Oh, another thing you'll need is something like a straight edge to clean your paper, and you'll see that in just a few minutes. You could use a piece of cardboard for this. I have a ruler that works great. So what you'll need to do is get your shaving cream, and you'll just spray a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. Do you see how it grows? Yeah, it's gonna grow just a little bit. I'm gonna add a little more on this side. Now I'm going to take my, my flat piece, and I'm just gonna spread this out. You could do it with your hands, which is so much fun, just to get dirty, right? Or it smells so good, just to get that. We want to have a space, a surface to work on. We're going to spread this out. You'll need some paper towels also, or an old rag of some sort that you can wipe off. Will you hand me a paper towel, please? Now, for the fun part, we have this spread onto here, and you can tell, oh, there they are. There's my paper towels. It's spread thin. This is not a thick application of shaving cream. I just want you to see how thin it is on there, so it doesn't take a lot. Make sure I'm centered up. Now we get to use our color. Now, limited color works better in paper marbling. I have, let's see, I have some yellow, and I have some green, and I have some blue. And let's see if I have some red. I do have red. So I have yellow, blue, and red. I could just limit myself to primary colors, or I could do cool colors, which the cool colors would be blue and green. Or I could go with warm colors and use red and yellow. So I'm going to demonstrate with the cool colors first. And this will stain your clothes and it will stain your hands. So just be careful with it. And I mean, it will eventually wash off your hands. And again, it's non-toxic because it's food coloring. But you just just barely squeeze, and you'll get some little droplets. Move them around on your shaving cream space. You don't want to squeeze too hard because it'll just come puddling out. It's just barely squeezing. So I'm going to use blue. I'm going to stop and put the lid on there. And my table's slanted. That's why I have to lay mine down. But now I'm going to add some green in between the spaces. Moving around. Barely squeezing this. Oh, see, I had too much there. All right, I'm going to stop there and actually marbleize this. So now I have these dots of color. You could use the end of a paintbrush, not the bristle end, but the hard end. You could use a toothpick. You could use a fork. You could use anything, a stick, to drag through here. And I'm going to demonstrate first with just the end of the paintbrush. And I'm going to use the paintbrush. I'm just going to draw straight through it. You want even lines. You don't want to just start scrubbing the colors through, because then it just kind of all muds together. You'll like it better if you drag your tool through the dots of color. It turns out really nice. See how it pulls those colors? And all right, I'm going to use my paper towel and wipe some of that off. And just make sure you drag through each dash or dot that you brought in of the color. It's already creating some nice movement. And down here, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to swirl my paintbrush in a swirl line. Ooh, that looks pretty. I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm not just scribbling with this. I'm creating a decisive swirl. Here we go. And then I see this has been kind of untouched here, so I'm going to make another swirl. And just dash through this a little bit because it still looks the same. You want to make sure it's all changed up. Okay. I think we're ready for our first print. So, get your paper and just lay it down and give it a smooth massage over. You don't want to slap it down because then you'll smush all the shaving cream out from under it. You just want to gently massage the paper. And then we're ready to peel it up. Cool. Look at this. Beautiful. Now I'm going to move this out of my way and show you how to use your straight edge. I'm using a ruler, but you could use a piece of cardboard, and you're just going to take it and we're going to get the shaving cream off is what we're doing. We're just scraping it from side to side. Look how beautiful. I love it. And there's my first print. Now, I'm going to set this to the side and let it dry. I'm going to pull my aluminum foil back. There is still a lot of ink or food coloring on this, so you could print multiple pieces of paper. I'm going to print it, I'm just going to lay it in a odd way, just diagonal, let it fall. And you could just keep printing it until all of your food coloring is gone. Beautiful. And I would scrape that off. But I'm gonna let it dry for just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and print another piece. Gentle massage. Beautiful. And I think I should be able to pull probably 2 or 3 more prints just from this marbleized food coloring. It's still so bright. It's beautiful. I need to scrape that one. Okay, now let's try adding yellow to this. Let's try that and see what happens. I'm going to drop in some of this yellow. Kind of looks orange. And it will change from different brands that you use. Let's see what happens. And I'd like to use a different tool. Again, you could use a stick. You could use pine leaves, little pine needles, anything that will stand up. I'm gonna take this. This is a pick. Just make a wavy line through there. Clean it off on a paper towel. Ooh, I'm liking the way this is working. And right in here. Okay, let's print it and see what it looks like. Give it a massage. Fill it up. Oh, cool. Remember, take your straight edge, something that you can scrape the excess shaving cream off, and let it dry. Okay, for a marbleized starry sky, we're gonna put a little bit of shaving cream on our aluminum foil, and we're gonna spread that out. And I'm just gonna use my fingers again. It can be really thin. And this time, I wanna think about the colors in a windy night sky that I might wanna use, inspired by Vincent Van Gogh. So I'm going to stick with, I think I'm gonna stick with blues and greens on this sky. And I'm gonna be intentional, a little more intentional about this print, because I'm going to be printing it over my drawing that I've already made. It's gonna be a mixed media piece. So I'm gonna start with some green. And I think I am gonna put a little bit of yellow in for some twinkling stars in my sky. I'll show you that in just a minute. I'm thinking about it already right now. And I'm gonna add some blue, and I am fine if they mix. It makes me happy. Just keep dropping it around, looking at that empty white space. Ooh, I'm starting to get low on food coloring because I have done lots of prints. Look at it squirting. That's fine. Small squirts are fine. Okay, now I'm going to drop in a few little drops of yellow, and I'm going to keep them towards the top of this space of my starry sky, because I know my house is going to be down here, but that's okay. I'm going to leave that for the wind. Okay, and on this print, I would like to use the end of my paintbrush so I can get a little more control, because I want to make some definite swirls of wind. In Vincent Van Gogh's Starry Night, you can almost hear the wind blowing because it just goes whoosh, whoosh, swirl. A swirl line can show movement of wind. And then you could make dashes, that short little movements with your tool, dash, 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 going in the same direction. And I think I'll have another swirl of wind coming from the other side. So I'm gonna make a swirl line, like clean that off, going to start on the edge and I'm going to pull through and around and curve it in and in and in. And I'm going to add some more dashes. Dash, dash, dash. I'm going to make another swirl here, wavy line through this area to show wind and movement. And in this space, I'm gonna create some twinkling of stars. So I'm gonna pull from this color, just pull some lines that radiate out from this space. And let's see what happens when we print that. I think it's gonna look pretty amazing. And I'd like to do the same thing here. So if you wanted to also, you could just make a letter X and then a line through it. And I'd like to do the same thing here. I'm gonna pull from the center. Okay, let me take a look before we print. I'd like to really pull some of these colors through. So pretty. Look at your space. Mix these in some. Okay, I'm so ready to print this. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a blank sheet first before I print on my drawing, just to see what it's going to look like, because you know you can print it more than one time. I'll lay that on top and give it a massage. Gentle, gentle. Pick one corner and pull your print. Cool. Move that out of the way. Use my straight edge and scrape this shaving cream off the top. Look at that wind swirling. Okay, it's perfect. I cannot wait to put this other print on. So let me print it on here. Okay, here's my finished drawing from earlier. And I wanted to be inspired by Vincent Van Gogh. Let's check it out. All right, I'm gonna lay this down. Drawing side down to the color. Give it a massage. Ooh, how cool, I can see it shining through already. And using crayon or oil pastels is best if you wanted to add color prior to this, so it won't bleed everywhere. Oh, how cool. Let's scrape some of this off so we can see. Oops. Get a paper towel and clean my tool off my ruler. You can take your time with this. Beautiful, windy, starry sky. Love it. And look, my color from my house still shines through. Paper marbling. Fun. I have some extra drawings that I created, just showing movement with swirls and dashes that I'd like to print to add my color. So I have my print making marbling ready. Beautiful. Just need to scrape that. Let's check this one. Ooh, beautiful, nice, starry, windy sky.